Well folks, it's official. It's 2020 and this new decade promises to blow our minds and take us into the next dimension. Okay, that's silly, but a lot of new tech and events are indeed coming up, and considering how far we've advanced in just 10 years from 2010, this could possibly be the decade where we see even more turning points in human society. However, if we were on the clock 20 years back to the year 2000, things were a little bit different. There was no Wi-Fi, no social media, there was no smartphones, no HDMI, no 4K or 8K, and cable was the best way to enjoy television. Oh, and not to mention broadband just about existed in the year 2000. You guys are probably wondering why the heck I'm so fixated on this year. Well, simply put, it was the year of the future, the new millennium, the year that everyone said would define us as a human species. Okay, maybe not, but the point is, it was definitely a time for change, and technology was already catching up with the year 2000. Again, broadband was coming out, the PS2 came out, and a whole host of other consoles were also going to be due to come out the year after. Point is, the year 2000 was going to be a big year of change. Funny enough, the PS1 didn't agree with that because that was still the best-selling console of that year, due in part thanks to the redesigned PS1 console that Sony made that same year. And a lot of the games that did sell well, sold well on the PS1. A lot of the games that year went to Platinum, or Greatest Hits as you know in the North American state. Well folks, the stage is set. How well do the games hold up 20 years later? Well, me and you are going to find out together. I've got 9 games lined up, and hopefully not only will they be still good to play, but they'll give you a sense of memories and your childhood, or adulthood if you were an adult at the time. Anyway, let's get started. Let's look at SpiderMan for the PlayStation 1. This game was a huge hit back in 2000 and went platinum in Europe for selling over 400,000 copies that year. It was also the first time my dad rented the game for me. I missed the days of renting video games. It was a lot of fun.
This isn't the bank!
SpiderMan allows you to control the famous hero of the same name. You can web swing, just fire webbing in general,
Already at full health.
make a web shield, web yank, or you can be like me and pretty much punch or kick basically everything.
Oh, what a mess!
You can grab enemies too, although this becomes less useful as time goes on. A decent amount of moves can be pulled off in this game. Spider-Man is roughly set after the events of Spider-Man Unlimited and has a connection to the animated series Spider-Man from 1994, since some of the voice actors from that show come back to voice their respective characters. That I never knew about.
It's gonna be right back on track.
Checkpoint 1, where's your 20?
Just backstage? Call it.
Who dares? Face me, coward!
The story involves a clone of Spider-Man stealing Dr. Octavius' device and essentially ruining Spider-Man's good image. Venom returns and a mysterious fog surrounds New York to add to the complications.
With you, you won't be able to get a job taking wedding pictures in Siberia! I tried to fight it. Can't fight him anymore!
Now you have to go out there and clear your name. Oh, and not to mention, save the city too.
These guys are serious.
Spider-Man is a kick-ass game. The game's pacing keeps you going, the controls are solid and responsive, and web swinging is fun, if very limited compared to the PS4 Spider-Man game. Also, what is he swinging on? Superman? Otherwise you actually do feel like Spider-Man, and considering not many games did a good job representing superheroes, this was a welcome change.
American made.
Not too far, little spider.
I must also stress the voice acting is top notch and the dialogue is very funny throughout, but also knows when to be serious as well.
Oh my goodness!
Get out of my way, nerd! Watch that first step, Parker. It's a doozy.
Ow! Head! Oh, toe! Ow!
Yeah, look out, lady.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, sorry, lady. Didn't see a thing.
The developers really put their all into this game, and every aspect shows effort and the ability to see why Spider-Man is still well loved by the public. It's not all perfect, however. The game is far too short for its own good, and although there's a few modes like the training mode, ultimately you will complete the game in 3 hours or less. The game's camera is fine usually, but any tight spaces messes it up, and you can end up blind for a moment.
Spider sense tingling.
Sometimes when you web zip, the controls end up backwards for a moment. This cost me some help when doing one of the police missions. I also wished there were more combos to pull off and a greater variety of enemies to face instead of the same 4 or 5 the game presents to us. But make no mistake, Spider-Man on the PS1 is a fine game, and since it's cheap, pick it up if you can and enjoy a slice of web-kicking action. Did I mention Stan Lee is the narrator? I'm sure that alone sells this game.
Into battle with symbiotes other than Carnage and Venom? And hostages? Old Webhead's got his work cut out for him today.
Oh, what a mess! I bet that controls the air conditioning.
Oh, thank you, Spider-Man!
Ace Combat 3 was released in 2000 in the Western markets and sold well. Over 1 million copies of this game were sold, and as a fan of the Ace Combat series of video games, I do enjoy this game. However, one thing must be said straight away. All Western ports are inferior compared to the Japanese original. There's hardly a story here. There's no voice acting, no substantial cutscenes, less missions, less soundtracks, and the whole game feels as if it had a lot more going for it. Namco was going to make every version the same and translate the Japanese voice acting into English and even dub it, but due to substandard sales in Japan and the PlayStation 2 around the corner, Namco chose not to do this. Don't get me wrong, Ace Combat 3 is still great, but not the best way to experience the game. So, Ace Combat 3 is a flight arcade sim game where you control various planes to take part in various missions that you have to fulfill. You will have access to the pretty terrible machine gun and the iconic missiles, which are your main way of blasting enemies to Kingdom Come. The game makes you focus on shooting down anything marked target in red. You also have access to a map so you can easily track down your target. The missions have you doing various tasks so your skills will be tested in many ways. Air control is key, and luckily the game's control is pretty spot on. It's a joy to fly these incredible machines, and the analog control feels at home here. You can use the right analog stick to look around your plane. Speaking of that, just look at the graphics. Absolutely amazing for the time. For me, the texture work and detail on the planes and even the environment steal the show and look incredible. To think this is actually running on a real PS1, I think that's pretty cool. I also noticed the game never drops a frame, ever. Namco really knew the system and they kept making really good looking games at this time. The sound and music are also very good. Very punchy sound effects make attacking anything very satisfying, and I love the sounds of the planes too. I guess you can say you feel very connected to the action as it's occurring. The music, however, needs a special mention. It's excellent. The game has a very electronic trance sound to it, and it's a very unique experience. It sounds modern, futuristic and frantic all at the same time. This is the only Ace Combat game with this type of soundtrack, so it stands out compared to the rest of the series. Despite the shortcomings, Ace Combat 3 is not to be missed. After all, it is still worthwhile and I can easily recommend it. Another brilliant title, and probably my all-time favourite game, Gran Turismo 2, takes driving games to a new standard. I have so much to say about this incredible game, but for the purposes of this video, I will restrain myself and talk about it briefly instead. We shall be focused on Disc 2, which is the Gran Turismo mode. It's the main mode and the reason you will be playing Gran Turismo 2. Gran Turismo 2 is a racing simulator game where in the Gran Turismo mode you'll be winning money, where you can eventually buy new cars, take place in more events, and so on. A simple concept that's backed up by offering so many cars to choose from. It's amazing how many cars are in this game, and so many can be changed and upgraded to be more competitive. There's a lot of now iconic cars in this game, and this is one reason why I keep coming back to play this wonderful game. Once you get on the road, the reason why the game is so good is clear to see. First, the graphics are top notch and everything was made with the utmost care. The detail on show and the complexity of making the cars look like their real counterparts is incredible. Everything just looks, dare I say, real? The handling is a joy too, and every car is different. For example, the Ford GT is a superb racing car, but it will punish you if you drive too lax and aren't quick enough at the wheel. The TVR Tuscan will bite your head off should you even slightly oversteer. But the BMW 740i rewards aggressive driving, and you can even pull off spectacular drifts. Oh wait, hang on, that's not right. Ah, much better. Ever wanted to see a RUF drift? No, me neither, but in this game you can, if you so desire, such a sight. By the way, check out the sound of this car. No, that's not a Nissan Skyline. You are looking at the TVR Speed 12, a car so fast and furious it was never released to the public. Still, what a car! Speaking of sound, the cars are recorded from the real cars. Well, mostly anyway, and they sound pretty accurate to me. A lot of people do criticise the series for poor vehicle sounds, but I think Gran Turismo 2 gets it bang on right, and it's a joy to listen to. As for the music soundtrack, it's okay, there's some good songs here and there, but the PAL version does not have the best soundtrack. Instead, you have to listen to the North American version, or heck, even the Japanese original. Ultimately, the bottom line, this is still my favourite game of all time, and even though there's been advancements made in the series, and other racing games for that matter, I always return to the second game in the series. It's really that good. I love Gran Turismo 2 and I hope it stays that way forever. Known elsewhere as Hot Shots Golf, Everybody's Golf 2 was my first ever golf video game and still my favourite to this day. Yes, it's simple and a bit limiting in comparison to newer golf games, but perhaps that's why I like it so much. Everybody's Golf 2 allows you to select from the tournament mode and various other modes for your golfing needs such as stroke, versus and training. In the tournament mode, you pick a golfer, a season, and off you go to become the next golfing legend. The game is pretty simple. Press X once to start a swing, X again to set power, and X once more to try and hit the ball as straight as possible. But just going in straight lines is not enough. There's other elements to consider. The wind will be your biggest problem, and when you first swing, a question mark will appear. Luckily, you can throw dirt into the air to see where the wind takes it. Then, you can adjust the golf clubs from drivers all the way down to putters, along with the power. Knowing when to use each club will give you the advantage. The aim is to get the golf ball into the hole at the end of each course in the fewest hits possible. Sounds easy, but don't worry, this game will make you break your controller pretty quickly. Not because of flaws or bad controls, it's more that you misjudge distances or fail to take hills, wind or curves into account. This game makes me curse more than most as I get into the experience and get mad knowing that a mistake could cost me a trophy. Also, winning unlocks new clubs and other goodies, so for me, missing out on those lovely items sucks! Graphically, the game's golf courses and camera angles steal the show. They look pretty detailed and I love seeing what scenery will appear next. I like the ball cam too. It's entertaining to see where the ball will land unless it's in a sandbank or water, which is not so fun. The character sprites are they're poor, very roughly done and lacking decent animation, thus making their movements pretty funny. At least this does not detract from the game. This is a surprise, and considering finding a good golf game is hard, maybe consider this one? It's a good time and I spent hours on it, cursing my bad luck and inability to get holes in one. EA used to do Formula 1 games, and F1 2000 was probably their best one too. Formula 1 back then used to be exciting, frenetic, and fast. I mean, really fast. It's no surprise then that my dad bought this for me back 20 years ago. Thanks, Dad. F1 2000 allows you to relive the Formula 1 2000 season and have a crack at being the world champion, if you want. For me, I just did a bunch of single races, so you can choose from all of the drivers from that season and the tracks too. Then you can decide how realistic or not you want the game to be. Of course, I'm a racing veteran baby, so hard difficulty and all rules and damages on please. If you pick practice or qualify mode, you can tune up the car to your liking. For me, out and out speed is my preference, but maybe you might want a balanced set or one designed for grip. Either way, it's up to you, young Padawan. Oh, sorry, wrong game. The racing is pretty fun, the speed is sweet, the car sound and sound effects are immersive enough, and if you are too careless, you will break the car, or end up as I did here. And there, the in-car camera is very neat and I love playing this game using this setting. The only major complaint about this game is the slowdown. It's so brutal at times and ruins the pacing of the game. It looks like a slideshow, and sadly when all the cars are bunched up, it gets even worse. Clearly they wanted the game to look good, so they managed to do this at the cost of a poor frame rate. This is a decent game, and if you find it cheap, I say give it a go.
Half-race distance complete. More than 15 seconds behind Deniz.
Well folks, we're halfway through the video, and as you can see, a lot of the games I covered have a lot of sentimental value to me, but I'm sure for you at home there's a lot of memories to be had with said games, and this is just a reminder why the year 2000 was such a great year, especially if you were in Europe like I am. But this is not the end of the story. We've still got some games to cover, and hopefully they're just as inviting and exciting to the player and you at home. With that, let's move on to the next 4 games I've got lined up just for you. Silent Bomber isn't talked about much these days, and it's a shame. The game is bloody good fun. Silent Bomber puts you in the role of Utah, a man who ended up killing many innocent people by mistake during his training and now is a soulless killing machine.
Understood, sir.
The story kicks off with the crew wanting to infiltrate Dante before the whole operation goes pear-shaped. Separated from the crew, you must battle your way through the action-packed levels. The way you attack in this game is by planting bombs on the floor or via a lock-on system and detonating the bombs. You can stack them for a more powerful bomb, or you can use one of these special bombs, such as napalm, to really turn up the heat. The levels are simple and are mostly linear in nature, although going off the path slightly may yield in goodies such as E-unit chips that increase how many bombs you can plant, up to 8 maximum, which is epic. The gameplay is quick and precise with excellent controls to boot, and so much chaos going on, your skills will be tested all throughout the game. The game's best aspect is definitely blowing things up. It is very satisfying and sounds great too. There's never a dull moment here, that's for sure. The game isn't perfect and it's a bit rough in some departments, but trust me on this, you need this game. I hope this short review will convince you, and if not, just look at it. Look at the epic bosses you have to face. Look at the pretty good graphics. Listen to the terrible voice acting.
Me immediately.
Now look here! We had our hands full shaking off enemy units in a ship that's shot full of holes!
Okay, that's not a good element, but it's still funny in a silly way. Bottom line, get Silent Bomber before it's too late. Don't pass it up! This is one of my favourite racing games. Released in 2000, Tucker World Touring Cars sold well over 400,000 copies in Europe alone, and it's a top tier game. The game is pretty simple. Compete in the celebrated Touring Cars racing event and try to be the best. First off, there's a lot of options here to customize. Weather, tracks, selecting the cars you want to race against, and choosing from over 40 cars is definitely no tall order. You can then customize your car settings and off you go to race. The racing action is so good in this game. The artificial intelligence will give you a run for your money. The handling of the cars is tight, heavy, yet flexible enough so that you can have the confidence to throw the cars into corners at breakneck speeds. The track designs are spot on, and believe me, using every inch of the circuit to win is a must. Also, racing incidents will crush the weaker cars, so don't end up in that situation too. Hitting at the right time will bolster your chances of winning, but a mistimed one will not. The graphics are amazing for the time. The cars here are fully detailed, have detailed interiors with a great tracking headcam view, and more importantly, the damage engine is incredible. It reacts differently to every bump, and the amount of damage each car can sustain is just brilliant. Without doubt, the best damage engine on the PlayStation. Overall, what a game. There's more than enough on offer to keep players coming back, and you will never get bored. Well done to Codemasters, who were on top form in 2000. Guilty Gear might seem like a bit of a strange inclusion. It came out first in 1998 for the Japanese and North American markets, but it was not released here in Europe until 2000. Despite this, I will count it here. Guilty Gear is a 2D fighting game, and a fantastic one at that. It's one of those special games that keep you coming back for more. Where do I start? There's not many modes here, just normal, training and versus modes. Yes, only 3. Reminds me of Tekken, except the training part. You can choose from 10 characters and my favourites are Soul Bad Guy, Milia Rage, and Chip. Chip is great because he is super fast and I love starting my combos with kicks. Milia is awesome. She is very agile, great in the air, and has the best spam move. Soul Bad Guy is overpowered as heck and can pretty much blow anybody away. Every character has something unique about them and all will take time to master properly. However, some characters are not great and the game does feel very unbalanced, especially towards the later stages when the artificial intelligence will start kicking your backside often. They will use the fatality move, as I call it, far too often. The problem with this move is, if it successfully lands, the match ends immediately. The amount of times when the artificial intelligence pulls it off when I'm clearly about to win always rattles me up. Also, I can barely get it to work, but the computer gets it to work no problem. It makes the later matches a chore to get through, as you are always vulnerable. Fortunately, the game makes up for this blunder. The sound and music are just fan-bleeding-tastic, the sound effects have a great punch, and every hit sounds like it actually hurts. It's pretty clear a lot of effort went into this department. I just love hearing the clashing of kicks and punches, the bassiness of the more powerful hits, and the when the announcer starts a fight. Throw in one of the best rock metal soundtracks ever conceived in a video game, and now I understand why I'm always feeling an adrenaline rush in this game. It's fantastic, and not many video games leave me as satisfied as Guilty Gear does. What a brilliant soundtrack indeed, easily ranked up there with the best of them. Also, listen to that screaming guitar. It's just so bloody awesome. Guilty Gear is not an easy ride, and you will lose many times over. If you can look past the somewhat dated visuals and the unfair difficulty spike and unbalanced characters, this is worth owning, and trust me, you will love it. The final game we will look at in this episode is Vagrant Story. This is an action RPG game made by Square, the same people behind Final Fantasy. Usually I do not like or care for RPG games. The only ones I like are the Pokemon games and Final Fantasy X on the PlayStation 2. The rest I can just never get into. However, this game is magnificent, and I do mean it. I've only played 2 to 3 hours so far, but I'm hooked on this. I mean, the intro cutscene was absolutely incredible. Amazing visuals, fan-bleeding good music that left me speechless. Then, when we start the game, the great music continues. The story is pretty interesting too. There's no voice acting, but the written dialogue contains what I assume is hints of Shakespearean writing, and it works to add personality and seriousness to the story. Now, I don't have a firm idea of what's going on yet. I won't go too deep into the story, at least not in this video. But the first 10 minutes allows you to get to grips with the basic combat and movement. The whole world is in 3D and you can freely move around. Each room has an entry and exit point, and going from A to B is usually simple. Watch out for enemies, traps and bats, yikes. As for combat, you press a button to get your weapon out, then hit the same button to commence an attack. You can choose which body part to strike. Depending on what you strike, there'll be a percentage in terms of what you can hit and then how much damage will be taken at the enemy, along with the chance of it hitting in the first place. At first, there's not much to this, but later on you will gain the ability to chain combos, put up your defense, and more. Don't get me started on the item management and magic on offer too. When I saw the menu, I was instantly overwhelmed by what I saw. Definitely a Square RPG in nature. Mind you, I was happy because the game sucked me in. The graphics, sound and presentation are all wonderful. You can just tell the people behind this love their job, and every facet of this game's design shows through. It's a thorough job, and I hate to think how long this all took to put together. However, all that I just said pales in comparison to the person who most definitely had the most fun behind this game. It was the composer of the soundtrack, Hitoshi Sakimoto. This really is quite a soundtrack. The man once stated this was his favourite soundtrack to work on, and no wonder. Every second of this soundtrack is wonderful, and the build up and payoff on each music track is so precise, it's like cutting bread, only with a butcher knife. This is a soundtrack that demands your attention, and well, the first 10 minutes alone demonstrate how brilliant the composer was. Actually, this might be the best 10 minutes in any game period. It's actually incredible. Alright, I could go on and on and on, but allow me to say this to sum this game up. Just buy it, please! Well, that was quite exhausting, folks, but there you are, 9 games from the year 2000 released on the PlayStation 1. As you saw, the games are very interesting indeed. A lot of them sold really well in this country, and they have a lot of memories for me. Some of the games I looked into were games that I didn't grow up with, but I've got to play recently, and the experience was incredible. I'm sure you guys at home will be saying, oh, what about the A's and the B's and the C's? I should explain. Most of the games I covered were games that I absolutely loved, or ones that I found recently that just so happened to be from the year 2000. I know I missed out Spyro, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Crash Bash, Final Fantasy 9, but these are games I could cover one day in the sequel to this video. But saying that, folks, this is where you come in. What kind of games do you think I should cover that were released in 2000 for the PS1? Leave your suggestions in the comments below, because I'm genuinely interested in knowing exactly what kind of games you guys think I should look into if I ever do this topic again. Until then, folks, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in my next video. Oh, and Happy New Year and Happy 2020. Hopefully this year will be exciting, fulfilling, and full of ambition. Not to mention, I'll be making sure to upload as much as possible. Until then, folks, I will see you next time.